those of you who don't know, I'm Jim Semelroth, listed up there in some of the timeline. And I don't want to repeat what's there, but give some little stories to fill in between the lines. So in 1995, there were two congregations, as it says here, Unitarian congregations, San Juan and Mission Viejo. And in February of 1995, that's 31 years, we're in our 31st year, and I'll explain. A woman named Susan Waters came to me. I was president of the one in Mission Viejo. And she said, Jim, can I talk to you? Sure. She said, All Souls in San Juan has lost their minister. And they've just rented a building a mile away from Aliso Creek. I said, oh, okay. She said, Jim, you got to put these two organizations together. I said, okay. I said, who's the president down there in San Juan? Dave Kinnear. Where's Dave? There he is. So after service, I went home that afternoon. I called up Dave, the number Susan gave me, and I told her what Susan said. I don't know if that was a setup or not, but it doesn't matter. So I called up Dave and told him, Susan said we ought to put these two things together. You got 60 members down there, no minister, but a building a mile from ours. Okay, we had a minister, no building. So it kind of made sense. And I said, how about it? Should we try to put these two together? And Dave said, I don't know what he said. I'm in. Let's do her. Something like that. And so we did it. And I said, Dave, I've got 4 officers, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and I don't know how many board members you have at All Souls. So we want to make it look like one organization is not taking over the other. We avoided the word merger because of the negative connotations in business world. So I've got Al Mortensen, vice president, Bob Meyer, both of them passed away, and my wife, Carol. So Jim and Carol. I said, Dave, so we had a meeting over here at Ogie's. You know, Ogie's used to be a Coco's. So we met over there. Carol, these are pretty good people from All Souls, So so we sat down and started planning how we're going to do this. Well, I had spent many years in the union movement and knew something about mergers and joining together organizations. And so I had some ideas how to do it. So we, and Dave came in with Dave and Brad Ross, and I think Dave Wise, was he one of them? And Penny Kinnear. Wait a minute, Jim and Carol, Dave and Penny. Nepotism? I heard it once. I heard that once. I said, you want to do it? So anyway, we sat there. We made some plans how to get together, how to make the best of both organizations, using bylaws from here. Got all of our committees working together as joint committees, coming up with plans on how to do things in what we then called the new church. And so we did that and said, you guys got somebody who could put our great resources, our finances together from these two churches that were going to die? I talked to Dave several times. We both thought these organizations would disappear if we didn't do this. So you got somebody to, put the money together, because we got to pay this rent on this building you guys rented and pay a minister if we can find somebody. Well, we had a minister who had agreed to stay on for a year or so before his retirement, Robert Ross. And he says, yeah, I think we got somebody. He's got a PhD in theoretical mathematics from Berkeley, studied under Teller and Oppenheimer. He knows how to add and stuff, so I think he's our guy. So Dick Huddlestone. And Dick and Lois were great members of this new congregation for a lot of reasons. So so we agreed how to do it, and we first met over there, as I said, at what was in Coco's. And then we said, let's get these people together. So you can see, they're not bad people. They're good people down there in San Juan. So St. Patrick's Day, whenever that is, next week, right? We got the two congregations, as many as could come, to come, and they decorated the Sombrero building that they'll talk about. And St. Patrick's Day, green, and all that. And these are good people, So, so we did it, and we started getting together in one service, joint service, still two organizations officially and legally, in July of 1995. And things are working out pretty well. I can think of two issues that we had. Everything was pretty smooth, got the committees working, new bylaws and so forth. So big issues. We had a little glitch with the name. We had a naming committee, and we had agreed whatever name we came up with, we had to proudly say Unitarian Universalist in the name of the congregation. So, we did that. We had joint services in July, and things were going well. Robert Ross was continuing until retirement in '97, and things were going well, worked out. We lost a few people here and there, and a couple big issues. The name. We had forgot to tell somebody we weren't going to use the name of either congregation because we didn't want to look like somebody's taken over. Oh, they just want us for the money to pay for that building. We heard that. Very few issues. But the big issues were the name and coffee, decaf or regular. I'm serious. Decaf or regular coffee. Serve them decaf, grind the beans, nobody's going to know the difference. And it was never an issue. What do we serve now? Decaf or regular? Don't say it. Why did we do this? Why did we do this? It was the work. We met regularly and come up with ideas and appoint people. I talked at Bart Bean's memorial service a few weeks ago, and I mentioned that I'm a big fan of Yuval Harari. A lot of you people have read some of his books. In his first book, the international bestseller, translated from Hebrew into 30-some languages, bestseller worldwide, Sapiens. I know some of you have read it. So, got me to thinking new ways of why we do things. Why do we create organizations? That's what people do. We create organizations. We have what he called a myth or a fiction to bind the people to that organization. So these two organizations, Dave and I both thought would die if we didn't do this. And so we put forth the effort and we did it. And Penny and Lynn will talk more about why we did it and how we did it and stories in between. So I want to talk about the pledges. This is actually, we're in our 31st year as of last November. So this is at least our 30th or 31st pledge drive. Maybe Penny can help me, but I can't remember when we put the two organizations together, how we funded it. I don't know if we had a pledge drive in 95 or not, but we made it. And we made it for 29 years. Is Dave Weber here? I had lunch with Dave. There's Dave. I think it was last year. Dave was one of the finance guys. How's the pledge drive going, Dave? Not so, we're really short. We're not going to make it. We'll get it. You know, I said, Dave, I've been through 29 years of pledge drive. You people always come forward. It always works. Every year, it worked out. But we had some ups and downs. Penny was treasurer for probably 15 years out of the 30. 15 maybe? Or more. Maybe 20. And so she knows the ups and downs. I remember Lynn's husband, Dave Keene. He was a finance guy. And, we're not going to make it. We're really short of money, you know. And Dave really agonized over, it bothered him. They'll come through. They always do. You always do. So I want to thank you for that. And I have perfect confidence it's going to work out again this year. We're 20, 30, so it'll happen. You'll come forward. You always do. Got to fix the bathroom upstairs. It's done. Got the money. We'll also talk about leadership, the last thing. By the way, I'm reclaiming my time. I got to explain this. So I told, what the heck's going on? Neuron infusion. Somebody believed it. And somebody else says, you need it. Talk about leadership. Is that list of presidents there? Without my neuron infusion, I was smart enough to write some of this history down. It's on the website. Is Dave Solly here? Dave Solly, he keeps the website going. And we have the history, all the presidents, all the ministers. And Lynn has agreed to take over, and she did the last tweak of the website. The latest news, the calling of Jason. Your history, man. In a good sense. So, but we've had terrific list of presidents. You can look at them again. They were all great, and committee chairs, and but mostly you. The pledges, the people that come forward when it's needed. So I want to thank you all. I'm totally confident it'll happen, no matter what. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Penny Kinnear, and I've been a member of this congregation since 1992. In the spring of 2002, the search committee, of which I was chair, had just decided to go back to the congregation and admit that we had failed. There were no candidates that we felt would be perfect for our congregation, and we were not prepared to settle. Within the week, a new candidate appeared on our UUA search website. John Millspaugh had graduated from Harvard Divinity School and had just completed his internship at First Unitarian Universalist Church in San Diego. As a personal aside, I had met John previously at General Assembly in Rochester, New York. He was a student at the same time as our daughter, Heather. I called him and first introduced myself as Heather's mom, and he remembered our times together. Then I told him I was chair of the search committee. He was very enthusiastic. Both the Reverend Tom Owen Toll and the then president of the UUA, the Reverend Bill Sinkford, had indicated that this would be a perfect match, a growing, enthusiastic congregation in an area that needed a strong voice. We arranged the neutral pulpit from which he would preach. He had taken the train to Los Angeles, so we offered to drive him to Mission Viejo to see our facility, and then take him to the train to San Juan Capistrano. We invited to have him stand in our newly donated pulpit and take it for a test drive. You just got to get the feel, you know? In May, at the UU Church in San Dieguito, the choir performed, and UUCSC, as we were called then, ordained the Reverend John Millspaugh, and we later installed him as our minister. As a congregation, we decided to set guidelines for the fair compensation of our clergy and other staff. As Tim indicated, our members have always answered our needs. With a promise by a member of the congregation to pay for it if the congregation was unable, we added the adjoining suite to our rental agreement to allow for expansion and a fellowship hall. We created offices for both the minister and an office administrator whose first year's salary was underwritten by a different member of the congregation. We created a kitchen of sorts with storage cells, a prep area, refrigerator, and a couple of donated microwaves. Within our community, we began holding 2 services on Sunday mornings with an adult forum and coffee hour in between. We also started the first covenant groups and began singing our children out of the service in both English and Spanish, as we did today. And we were officially recognized as a welcoming congregation. Under the capable guidance of Tara Sayre, we developed the mission statement that is still guiding us today and began to reach outside of ourselves. We called our first community minister. We began our first social action activities, including several protests. Shirley McGovern and the Women in Black held vigils for all victims of war. Reverend John became the liberal voice we had envisioned. He spoke in the media, both print and television, about marriage equality, peace, and race relations. At a Sunday service, Reverend John mentioned that our congregation was a tapestry. It didn't take long for us to officially change our name to the one we bear today. These were good years, and I am proud to have been part of them.
I'm Lynn Cowan, and I've served as president not once but twice for the congregation during pretty critical times. As Penny mentioned, Obrero had served us well as a home base. Membership had grown so much that we tried having 2 services. But there were what real estate folks call incurable defects. The sanctuary and social hall were too small. But the second floor classrooms were so vast that I had trouble finding my kids after the service. There were 2 pages of building code violations: limited parking, a restroom door that opened into the sanctuary that I mentioned the last time I spoke, no real kitchen, and no hot water. But the rent was cheap. It was $120,000 a year for 10,000 square feet. But we knew we had to move to better space with lower rent. And finally, we found Madero. It was $73,000 a year for less than half the space, but it had lots of parking, and we could have coffee hour outdoors. There were still incurable defects. All the classrooms and offices opened onto the sanctuary, which was still too small. We had hot water, but the kitchen was a refrigerator and sink in the hall by the restrooms. For events, Ways and Means moved hot plates, ice chests, and utensils into a classroom. Finally, financially, we were surviving. But then we lost our renter and a major donor. And then in fall 2015, I got the lease renewal from our landlord. Within 5 years, the Madero rent would be over $100,000 a year. So we researched 4 options: stay at Madero and find the money somehow, rent somewhere else, And we weren't kidding when we told our agent that we wanted a bigger space for less money. We could rent space from a school or church, sort of going back in time, and then move the hymnals and the RE supplies and everything else in and out every Sunday. Or we could finally buy a building. In 2006, we had a capital campaign, and it raised over $300,000. That was a great start, but it wasn't enough to buy a building and renovate it. In February 2016, I gave the congregation my "We Must Leave Madero" speech. It proposed the purchase of this building. We needed at least $400,000 more. And that's when Tapestry stepped up in ways I could never have predicted. When I was done with my speech, Sheila Raymond, she stood up and she made the first donation. And then after the service, Bill Medina came up and told me, Tapestry folks could fund the mortgage, and 12 of you did. Eddie Moeller, he ran the 2-year Raise the Roof capital campaign, and many of you donated to the $300,000 we raised for the down payment and the build-out. The UUA gave us $25,000, and the Spirit Level Foundation gave us a $200,000 matching grant. Real estate attorney and member John Eckert volunteered hundreds of hours in legal work and negotiations. We signed the purchase agreement in April 2017, and the sale went through that December, and we moved in here January 2019. But what took almost 2 years? Well, the seller wanted our purchase kept secret from the current tenant for months. There was bureaucracy with the city. Then we had the interim move, renting at St. George's Episcopal so that we weren't paying both the mortgage and high rent. And there were many, many surprises, and most meant we needed more money. When one of the air conditioners didn't work, an anonymous donor stepped up with $65,000 to replace it. But mostly we relied on volunteer labor for everything that we could. For a year, Richard Boot organized the move out and what to store in people's garages, plus all of the build-out details, then the painting, the cleaning, and even putting the film on the sanctuary windows. Yes, we had leaders who organized the work, but it was the people of Tapestry who did the work. You had the faith that we would succeed, and the patience during those long months. So many of you gave the money and gave your time to make our decades-long dream of owning our building a reality. But buying a building was never the end goal. It was a means to an end. And through it all, we never lost sight of Tapestry's purpose, to be a home for liberal spirituality in South Orange County and beyond. Next Sunday, you'll hear about Tapestry's impact in the wider community during those years. We are finally financially stable. We are paying down the mortgage. We have a healthy reserve account for repairs. Your donations and past pledges made that possible. Your future pledges will help us meet the moment once again. This is our time to do more, to give back, and to help a world in great need. Thank you.